even begin to understand what the nature of the relationship is between the school district and the county when it comes to construction, et cetera. It was Ruane. I had a great meeting with Ruane, and if he sees this on the recording, hopefully he'll smile, but he looked at our interlocal agreement dated 2009, and just smiled and said, "Is that it?" And I said, "Yes, there's no sunset." And he smiled, but I think he understood what I was describing in terms of the relationships and where we are, and so I thought it was a good meeting. And I will continue along to meet with all the other commissioners and see where we go, but I think Commissioner Wayne is open to discussions about process and.
Does he receptive to the concept in general, or, is it just kind of?
Well, I think he was basically astonished that we're in the position we're in. And he understands why he understands when you talk about the interlocal agreement, the Hillsborough agreement and all of that, he gets it. It's plain as day to him that they have a responsibility, and we have a responsibility, even though the agreement doesn't say that. Now, whether or not, we continue to meet, and at some point, if his attorneys sit down with our attorneys and they actually try to do something, who knows? But I will reach out to the other commissioners and, we'll keep pushing. But I'm glad that you all encouraged me to do it, because I think now with Sandelli new and Ruane fairly new and very, very savvy in terms of public entities and the private sector, I think maybe we'll get a hearing. So that was good. And then the other thing I want to report is, I'm sure you've all heard that the superintendent is retiring effective June 30th, the end of his contract. And I just want to tell you what the process is to replace him at this point. The board has agreed to hire what is called, we call it an interim superintendent. By state law, there's no such thing as an interim superintendent, but we are going to hire a superintendent with a 6 to 9 month contract. The person that we put in that position will not be eligible to apply for the permanent position. We are doing a national search for the interim, even though it's only 6 to 9 months. People think that there may be executives out there who, with prior experience, or superintendents with prior experience, who would be happy to jump in and sort of take the paddle from one person and hand it to someone else. But we will definitely do a national search. And so, the time frame is 6 to 9 months before we have a new superintendent in place. So I think the takeaway is that, from my point of view, an interim is really there for risk management. They're to make sure we stay on the strategic plan. They're to make sure that we keep the great leadership that we have in the district, and we continue to move on. Just nothing, I wouldn't expect anything new. That's from a board member, not representing the board. Questions? That's my report.
A little bit of a head scratcher trying to do the interim on a national level, because you've got to put yourself out there for 6 to 9 months to find a patch for 6 to 9 months.
Well, frankly, there was a candidate who probably will not apply, but who basically is talking about, there's a life, superintendents don't last past 5 years. And when you get to a certain point in your life, you're committing to, when you're 55 or 60, 5 years. Do you really want to invest all of that, or would you rather, particularly if you've got your pension already, would you rather just keep your hand in the business, just like a minister who takes over in a congregation between ministers? You're retired, you have something to expertise to lend to a district, get paid for, you get to live in Florida, right? This will be, that's Florida in the summer.
You'll still get a ton of applicants.
So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see. And there may be internal applicants also, but I don't know. We've made it very clear, the contract will stipulate that whoever serves in the interim position will not be eligible.
Well, that's why it seems to make sense to do that from within, just to maintain the continuity and not have things come to a screeching halt for a little while, while you think about who you really want to have.
But see, the problem is the people who would step up for the internal would want the permanent.
Yeah.
I think.
I mean, I could be wrong, there could be a
I
number
had
of.
this study where you can't get the project, I think we've had this discussion, exactly.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Says, why do the study if it excludes you from getting the project? We've had this discussion.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Maybe there's someone retiring, planning to retire that might jump into that.
Well, that's what I'm hoping. Yeah,
All right, well, thank you for that.
we'll see.
Well, good luck and, kind of wish you the speediest success in filling those gaps. We do not appear to have much member of the public here other than the esteemed gentleman from Harvard Jolly. So with that, I guess we move right into what they are going to show us today.
We have a quorum today?
We do.
Good.
We're actually down to 10 members now, because a couple people got booted, so it's a little easier to do the quorum. The three strike rule.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, if we were still at 12, 13 members, we're kind of iffy, but we're down to 10, so we should be good.
Who's booted?
Jackie Brown was one. She apologized, she wrote in and said, I'm terribly sorry, I just can't make it, I'll apply again next year. This is kind of our last meeting, I believe, for the summer break, isn't it?
Yes.
So she's gonna reapply
Summer
for next year, yeah. If we so choose. We've foregone summers before,
Let me put that in my calendar.
Scott, we'll see you in,
You can still come to my office and have meetings.
We're here.
So I think you start back up, what, in August or September?
Typically, the
September.
committee's approved, our first meeting is like late September, because we can't meet until after the board approves the committee, which is the middle of September.
Yeah.
So we end up like September 20th, and then we'll be October first
Yeah,
week, go back to normal.
Yeah, you're good, Steve, you knew just what button I hit.
Oh, well, sometimes we get lucky. Scott, were you gonna have any kind of intro to this, or?
This is our Harvard Jolly, our architectural design team for what was NN&K, is now pre-K8 in Estero, right on Three Oaks Parkway. So we've got a brief 30,000-foot view to go over the site plan and some of the project details with you. And then we'll open it up for some question and answer. So with that, Steve Johnson and Mike Johnson.
No relation. No relation. He's not gonna
As you
quit.
can tell by.
Which is the better looking twin?
Well, thank you all for having us today. We appreciate being here, and we'll keep it brief, but just again, right now, we're at this point in the project, we're 60%, we're heading towards 75% documents. So well along the way. I'll go over the site plan, and then Michael will jump into the floor plan. So as Scott mentioned, it's on Three Oaks Parkway over to the west, 75 is to the east, Copper Oaks neighborhood is to the north. And just for orientation, the premise behind this was really to take the district's elementary and middle school and combine them. So it really is based on that adapted prototype. You can see here this L-shaped, well, it's U-shaped, but the L-shaped two-story classroom building is the elementary school prototype. And then the gymnasium from the middle school and the components of the gym and the dining room from the middle school, and then the media center, Michael talked about this in the plans, is really the most, would kind of have the most adaptation. Plus a little bit of a skewing at the angle to open up the outside and fit on the site. Big picture in terms of car queuing, many of you know we need to keep all the cars off Three Oaks on site. So we went through a pretty extensive study based on 1,800 kids now to open, and then in the future, the core spaces are designed to handle 2,300 kids. So we took that into account and account for all of the car queuing. Ultimately, on the 2,300 build out, I'll just kind of share with you that it's over 3 months. It's like 3.2 miles. Danny Hume's civil engineer on the project, but that would include coming off of Three Oaks, winding around, widening these lanes coming through, having a loop back up to the front door to the single point of entry and the drop off zone for cars. When you come into the site, that handles the cars to the south, and then the buses peel off to the north into the bus, and that's receiving as well. So 68 acres total on site, quite a bit of water management going on. We have lots of outdoor athletic areas. Have worked, coordinated with some comments and sort of informational sessions and comments from Three Oaks neighborhood, working through that, the finer details of that process. So I'm going to jump into the first floor. So we have 2 floor plans and then an exterior image of what the front door is going to look like.
Yeah, Steve had mentioned the classroom wing is U-shaped, and it started from the prototype of the elementary school, which was an L shape. But we have pre-K and through 8 in this building. So we added an extra leg to this. We did many options, but this is the one we ultimately settled on. 2-story, pre-K through 2 on the first floor, and the remaining classrooms on the second floor. The admin is front and center, just like the elementary school, but our administration suite had to bump out a little bit further to accommodate the extra needs for the middle school. The gym is pretty much right off of the middle school concept, except it's a little bit larger for the capacity. This place, as Steve mentioned, it's a size for 2,300 students. So we ran the numbers and the gym got elongated. In doing so, it rotated. Otherwise, it's very similar.
And another subtle thing with the gym is that the mechanical mezzanine was up higher. We brought that down for access from outside. So a couple little things like that, but really just kind of operational, another look at it.
And then the cafeteria kitchen is an enlargement of the middle school prototype as well. And then the piece that's a little bit different, but similar in plan and footprint, at least to the elementary school, is the media center. We built the whole block area, which was the media center, art, music, and the cafeteria. So you see some similarities in this plan here, and then these components, and this is what's new to capacity. And of course, this dashed line represents the additional students that take up to 2,300.
So the dash line would be where an additional portion of the building should the seat capacity ever be needed. Now, all of our water management has already been approved, and we're putting in for approval to cover the expansion of the roof for car capacity and the impervious where the addition would go on. And again, the core spaces were expanded, so in the 10 years, if we need that, we're not shortchanged on core space. We just plop the addition on and we're good to go.
Right. We not only do we stub out.
Yeah, wait, like halfway through construction to make that decision?
Well, it's to be determined. Not only do we stub out for the addition, but we also stub out for portable classrooms that can sit in here if they have a piecemeal.
Well, let me make clear, there are no portables planned for this campus. Every new school we build, we plot an area, if portables could ever be needed, with empty conduits and pipes for quick adaptation. There are no portables planned for this job.
Exactly, SRF requires you to do that, so.
Just the hookups. The playground area is outside. There's a play zone here for K2.
Yeah, I didn't really touch on it, but the pre-K is added to the floor plan, which occurs all the way at the end here with its own playground area. And then the kindergarten has its area, and then the remainder of the primary classrooms are here. Intermediate occurs over here. There's your covered play area, some ball courts.
The idea behind it being that the small, kids that are closest to, the drop-off pickup area.
The middle school is up here on the site plan. Play areas. Yes.
Is the times the same? So all the elementary kids show up
Yes.
like they normally do, and then the next round is,
No, it's one drop off, all grades.
wow, okay.
Sure, no fun.
So,
9 o'clock.
Oh, I guess when Riverdale was middle through, it was that way too, wasn't it? I now remember that.
same with Veteran Park, James Stevens with Common Bell Time when that was a pre-K or K.
What's the,
Then an open court, outdoor play.
Dining kind of in between?
This is a covered food courts right in here.
the covered play structure down here?
Yeah, that's the,
There's some support space for a PE office and
Yeah,
programs and.
that would be our standard play pavilion with a PE office, storage, and a unisex or boys and girls handicap bathroom.
Is that up for,
About
the lawn size or for?
It's our prototype size.
Same size as the other.
For a kid, for an elementary school?
We did add a staff restroom out there. We also added unisex restroom on both floors. And we added doors between the classrooms, so there's some minor tweaks.
So this is just for the K through 5, K through 6, K through 5 students?
That's that part of the playground, yeah.
Yeah, this would be for
Yeah.
pre-K, kindergarten, 1 and 2, 3 through 5 here.
Is there any physical
6
separation?
through 8 up here.
Is there any physical separation between the pre-K, K area with the larger kids, adults?
Well, there'll be fence, like we do at all of our playgrounds, the primary and the intermediate, there'll be 4-foot fence around them with access points like we do at all the schools. But they're not open, they're all fenced in so that kids don't meander into the others, we don't get the older kids coming in and roughhousing in the younger kids area. And obviously the fields in the back are open fields.
The fourth, fifth, and seventh, sixth, seventh, and eighth kids are upstairs, second floor?
Yes, yeah, really third through 8.
So as you can see, the U shape is up on the entire second floor. 3rd grade starts here, 4th and 5th. Then we transition to the middle school, 6, 7, 8 on this side with the shared lab, science and technology all in one bar. And the idea is that when the addition occurs over here, these are all laid out the same as science, some tech and science, so that they can become science, and tech will move into the new addition. And then family and consumer sciences in the corner.
Are those all combo classroom science labs together at the same space?
Correct, so they share the same back of house storage.
Same concept as the middle school, yeah.
The dishwashers, the glassware washers, the material storage, all common shared space. You can see that, that's that long block behind all of the classrooms.
So it's not, there is no lab space, it's inside the classroom.
Well, it's similar
Lab and
to,
classroom, the lab and classrooms combined.
It's not
They're all
separated,
labs, they're not demo science.
it's not separated like that at the high school level.
What's the seating capacity of the gymnasium?
proposed, it's around 900 bleachers.
Is there gonna be a shelter?
No.
So it's 900, oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's in a flood zone, and we asked the question of Sandra, and I can't pronounce her last name, Sandra P. And we did ask her that question when they were talking about J Elementary, and they declined at this point for the school to be sheltered. There's enough capacity down in that area between the legal arena and the Hertz arena and.
So do we know, does it fall in an evacuation zone B, C, and F, or is it A, B, or C?
It's A, B, or C, which we're allowed not to provide further now, and they chose not to. Pretty much anything down that way that's west of 75 isn't in the zone. Rule of thumb is anything east of 75 you can consider. Okay.
So 900 on the bleachers, but then we went through and showed, how seats could be put out in the center on the court area for other assembly, function.
The other thing I would note is that
Stair towers are on the ends and then the corners. Same thing with restrooms and the
camera rooms are in the corners.
Of course, on the younger grades, restrooms are in the classrooms.
And we did increase the capacity of bleacher seats in this school, but I have to be very careful that I don't have a pre-K school that has more bleacher seats than I do at a high school level, which this does in certain. So we've tried to be very prudent, yet provide enough seating so that the principals could have multiple grade levels and do presentations and have sporting events. And there may be some there more likely will be shared use potential with the village of Estero. So hence, the way that they've laid out the building, so that we can access the gym for events, we can access the media center for events, and we also use the bus lane. We've created that an off-hours capability for some parking, so we don't have to open up the whole facility. We can open up that one leg for like a soccer game or things of that nature.
That's what threw me off more than anything. I was kind of expecting the gym to be the front. That's usually where most of here's the new rule that I use events are.
And we learned it from Benita. now with the free and reduced lunch for just about every school in the district, I think all of them now, matter of fact. First drop off for the kids off the bus is to get breakfast. So at the need, unfortunately, we had a cafeteria on the other side of the campus, so the kids had to transition and they had to try to manage that. Now what we do in all our new designs, M, MM, and J, they get off the bus and first point of contact is the cafeteria to get their free and reduced breakfast. The parent drop off is coordinated so that they can get access quickly to the cafeteria to get their free breakfast. So that's how we're rearranging the site now.
Well, yeah, the cafeteria in the middle makes perfect sense. I'm just, you know, in my head, I would pull up the gym and the media center, put the gym up front, so we have 900 people there for a basketball
See,
game.
the gym's multi-purpose. Remember, they play soccer at middle school, so we want the egress points out to the open sports fields.
Yeah, I
and
understand that, yeah.
dump right out into that area.
Right.
One thing we didn't touch on the site plan is that we have a diagonal bus parking that's double striped for car spaces as well.
Okay.
To me, is that, is there enough room for buses to turn around on that busway?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just trying to wrap my head around, you know, a visiting parent coming in, trying to find the gym, and they've got to more or less wander through the whole place, trying to figure that out.
And that was first of all, it's single point entry. Nobody comes in except through the front door. So if it's an out after event or a rental of the facility, the gates would be open to the bus loop. They would go back, there would be signage, they would go back, and we have gates internally in the campus that prevent them from entering into the other portions of the campus and just wandering around. So they're contained.
We went through that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Brian, and then it was, back and forth and access to the fields, but, and, part of the idea of canting this in this particular layout is to bring that gym just a little bit visually out as you pull the overflow, the after hours parking. There's quite a bit of parking capacity back there. And then connect parking, if you're here, it's a little bit farther to walk, obviously. This isn't so bad, you can park up in here and we've got an easy walk over. Second floor. And the 3D imagery of the administration building here, front door, media center, and then the second, two-story classroom building behind. Fairly straightforward, tilt wall construction, very efficient, to carry forward the prototype efficiency. So I think that's our last slide. Any question you may have? 236,000 square feet. That does include the upsizing the core spaces to handle the classroom expansion in the future.
Is the stage of the gym, is it the black box style down at grade, or is it, still elevated?
It's down at grade, before Dr. Santini left, and we got a new music coordinator, I believe, non-director. We went through it, and we're actually doing it at your school, MM Middle. We lowered it down to the black box theater. They can always buy the expandable chorus ramps if they want, they're collapsible and keep them back of house. This allowed for no handicap ramps, and it allowed for better use of that back of house space for curtains and drop space. If you ever went to Orange Marsh, it's just really,
It's hard to get up.
it's hard to get up there, it's hard to work, it's hard to have any props or have the kids come from their prep areas back in. So we're utilizing that design, and it seems to be a sale point with all of the art people. So until we get a new crew, one that has a different vision, and I'm sure we'll change it some other way. But right now, this is the vision.
So that'll happen about 3/4 of the way through construction.
Well,
Been there, done it.
fortunately, on this job, we've had a lot of participation on this one. We did it at MM as well. With executive staff, Linda Merritt, who's our executive of middle school operations, has been at every project meeting. We've had the elementary person there, to a certain extent, but on the pre-K. So it's had a lot of district input at the meetings. We typically have, what, Dana, would you say, about 15 people at least?
15 to 20.
So every department's had a voice, a say. We're trying to get this to be a prototype that can carry us through to the future. And I think overall, it's pretty nice school.
Fair enough. Any other input? Bob was suspiciously quiet back there.
What's your projected thoughts? What's your projected, start between K to, what is it, 5 and then 6 to your middle school?
Same bell time.
No number of students.
I couldn't tell you that, that's a planning function. There's a whole generational switch as kids come in and what grade level they mature and go through that building, so that would be a planning question, I couldn't tell you.
I still think Estero Parkway, or Three Oaks Parkway is gonna be a mess.
That was a vendor.
There's a signal there.
That was an Estero thing,
The
right?
signal's not gonna help with 600 cars. Too well.
Let's put it this way, I went to 3 different schools and studied their drop-off and pickup times. One of them had a signal, and at no time were their parents waiting longer than the signal provided them access out onto the roadway.
Well, I agree with that. I've seen that myself.
So usually what the problem is the parents that are sitting at the light waiting to go are on their phone, talking to their kids, doing whatever, and not paying attention to traffic in front of them. So the light turns green, first 5 cars go, and then everybody else is stuck because mom is on the phone, not paying attention. And I watched it not only at the schools with a signal, but the other 2 schools that don't have signals.
And our big problem really has been the parents, especially at elementary level, and grandparents, getting there 2 hours early, blocking up surface traffic roadways, because our design didn't have the capacity on the interior. So all of our schools, we did this at MS, we installed an action time, and we did it here, and we're doing it on all of our new schools. We're bringing all of that capacity, the worst potential, onto our site. So yeah, we're paving the heck out of things and making things that may not look so beautiful, but so that we never get that complaint that we're blocking Tree Line Avenue, or we're blocking, what's the one in front of Ida Baker and Gulf, Agawanda Boulevard, in front of Chicago Elementary, you know, at certain times, but we're bringing them in. So assuming traffic flows, and we created that flow and they stack, I personally, it doesn't matter how long it takes them to get through there, as long as they're off surface roads with fence, means the rest of the people going to work shouldn't be complaining, theoretically. And then as far as exiting, we've got a time light. They're sitting in our site until the light allows a certain number of cars through, and then the light changes and allows them to go through. So we try to accommodate, this is our parcel, this is what we had, we bought for a school parcel and school build, and we're making utilization of it.
There's a lot of roadway there. Sorry. The only little complex thing that I see is trying to get out. If you have one of those moms falling asleep on the cell phone, she could be right in front of the bus turn. You know, there's not a lot of stacking on the way out before you hit that bus turn. You know, and if you have a lot of cars trying to get out, that could be a little bit issue, but it's an oversight, you know, you have to keep people, awake, like, can a bus make that left when 200 cars are trying to get out, you know?
So it's.
But it looks like there's plenty of space, that's just me thinking worst case scenario, but.
No, you are correct. You are correct. If a parent falls asleep, but it is 2 lanes exiting the site. So as you exit, there'll be a dedicated lane, turn right, head north, and then there'll be, the left lane on the south side. You can either go straight, which will go through to the community, or you'll, obviously turn left.
And there's a stop bar on the exiting lane for once a parent drops them off, where they have to come to a positive stop. So if there were a bus to be there, the bus can get through, correct then?
Yes. What they just done is they essentially created a road on our site.
And you know my statement, you can't fix stupid. So we can't stop people on cell phones, I mean, unfortunately, and if it were to ever become an issue, sadly, the principals were invited. They may have to put an administrator out there to manage it.
Yeah, that happens at Lehigh Elementary right now.
Well, it happened at all 3 schools that I studied.
No.
They had people at all the key points, and they were waving them and stopping and letting other people maneuver if they needed to. And it was really, that was the key to the success of the pickup, was those teachers and administrators that were out there flagging those people through, man, they were waving them like crazy.
Yeah, I could kind of see that already, like you want everyone to take the Serpentine Road and roundabout, But the second someone says, hey, there's no line over there, if I just go straight, I can duck around that cone, and I'll be right there in no time.
Yeah, that's a station, potentially
Yeah,
right there,
exactly.
that's a station.
Yep.
Yeah, because that needs to be freed up for visitor and staff.
Well, the problem is, we've also made it difficult for people who choose to say they're gonna drop their kid off and park in the front visitor staff area. It's difficult because they've gotta stop hard before they can get out. So they if they go in there, they're gonna trap themselves to a certain extent, and they're gonna be at the mercy of the people being courteous to let them in and out. So, it's been thought through.
What's the buffer you have up against the top part there, by the bus park?
That's existing,
Trees.
but we are planting trees up against, copper oaks. Even though we're not.
Yeah, so
required
that's
to put
that's
them.
existing there, and then there's an additional buffer, berm in.
Trees and trees.
We call it a betterment plan, Art.
I'm sure you've gone through that committee process. Looks like you got open trees and you got open,
I was out there this morning, those trees are trash.
Everything on that property was scrub and swamp, and not quality swamp, it was garbage.
And all the kind of cover.
So we're going through, and there's actually some issues with our Copper Oaks neighboring drainage. Now, we've worked with them, their drainage ditch is historical as you get to the western side of our property. So unfortunately, there was an already historical drainage easement there. We're leaving that in place, we're not cutting that off. We've actually taken our water, pulled it out of that historical ditch, and we're piping it straight out to Estera, which actually now leaves that ditch for more capacity for that neighborhood now. So if anything, we've reduced the potential of their neighborhood flooding.
Right.
One thing that I would add is that these fields are rendered to show their configuration, their size, but they're not actually developed as fields, they're just grass areas, with the exception of maybe there's a backstop.
Correct.
Where the pitfall would be. This is more of a direct representation of what the field is.
And what we're doing at this stage, we provide one Bahia field for a soccer field. It's not lit, it can be striped, they can utilize it for their soccer game. If the village of Estero chooses to partner and they want to create a second field in that upper northerly area, if they want Bermuda grass, if they want some sports lighting, it is my intention that that would be paid for by the village for those improvements. Other than that, this is a standard school bill.
That's another interlocal that needs to be worked on as well.
Tennis courts?
Hard court area, tennis basketball.
Where it says CEC, is that the yard or the building?
That's the building.
That's the building.
The yard is off to the side there.
Okay.
These are some dumpsters.
This graphically looks a little backwards, I'm like, man, you want to keep the yard towards the highway. Maybe waiting for that phone call.
Already happened. Don't worry.
All right, any others? Bueller?
Okay.
Thank you so much for the time, really.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I know, next on our, schedule, we had the, procurement RFQ changes. We'll drop this, Scott, to last on the other updates, just in case we run out of time. I think it's probably the most smart, and I don't know if there's a way to get the RFQ, the comments up there, Julia? Or no? Do you think there is a way to get them up on the screen? Bob had sent out a few comments, and I had a few of my own, but just.
I didn't scan them ahead of time
No?
or bring my laptop. I did bring a written copy of it
Thanks again, guys.
that I printed, and I know I'd emailed it out to everyone. I
Okay.
guess I should have asked people to print them.
Copy, maybe Ryan can read it.
I mean, I have a printed copy for me, I just, do I have to read the whole thing or just the comment, you know?
Does anybody else want a copy that I printed out? There you go.
Julia, did those comment responses get sent to all of the committee members?
Yes, I sent that out when I sent it out last week when I Get off the agenda.
Okay, so if you wanna go back, you know, at your leisure, the full questions and comments should have been emailed to everybody, just take a look, if not, give us a yell, Julia will email them to you. And you can hit the highlights, I would think, Ryan, in terms of.
Yeah, I'll briefly skim through it. This is on the written responses. We'll start from the top. 1.1 is the past experience. We've had a lot of discussions on this as currently written. It says to be completed within the last 7 years. Bob's recommendation was to take that out altogether. Not completely aligned with that thought. Maybe we open it up to 10, just because of the lack of work that has been coming out of the district for a significant time frame. There was just nothing done. So people are gonna start falling into that crack of, well, you know, we used to do this for a living, but if you don't have anything in that window, then you're out of luck. Doesn't seem to have been a problem. Clearly, enough work has been given out to kind of minimize that, but I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts one way or the other. It currently stands at 7, I would recommend pushing it to 10, but then, getting rid of it altogether, I don't know if that's on the table. It seems to be what you're implying here.
Right.
Any thoughts one way or the other by the committee at large?
I don't think
Whether
we
or not-
should, my personal opinion, we should be gotten rid of altogether. We're just going, where we had been able to provide that work, going to 10 years, I do not see it.
10. I would agree. So do you want to make a recommendation that we recommend pushing up to 10, or would you like to,
Well, if you do the math,
follow it up?
if it's 2021, that takes any projects after 2011, right?
Yeah.
Well, that was
Still in recession.
Right, but the other option is to go back, till I was in middle school and say, yeah, that was all good too, so. It needs to be there for a reason, and it's just, how much can you really do with it? Look at other numbers, but pre-recession is 20 years, and, I can claim projects before I was born.
So,
That you didn't work on.
in the original refresh,
I wouldn't be the only one.
in the original, Ryan, in the original refresh, when we set this up, 7 years going back from that point,
Yeah.
we were back into the construction era that we were all in.
Yeah.
But time has passed, and the work is just only starting to come out now. A couple projects, as you know. That's why that was suggested. I mean, you want another way of looking at it, projects from 2005 forward might be another way of looking at that. And that was during the last construction.
I mean, would you want to go to 15, that maybe gets you 1 or 2 years before the construction?
Well,
I don't know if that's really.
I think that's a reach. I think 15 to reach.
So if you're doing a project, if you're for the 2023, you go back 10 years from there, then you're back, so it just keeps rolling, right?
Yeah.
So eventually it's gonna all catch up.
Right.
And what happens when you got say you got 4 bidders on the deal, and none of the 4 can qualify under that? They're gonna pick somebody. I mean, work's still gonna get done.
Right, and you know what, and I think we have to talk to them about, like, look, within reason, if it's 11 years out, dock them a point, don't throw the whole project away, more recent is definitely more valuable, but, it shouldn't be an end all be all of, hey, that's 12 years, even though it's a perfect match. There has to be some kind of common sense leniency in the judging process.
Well, I think that in the way that you can respond to these RFQs, you can be creative, and you can provide, projects within the last 7 or 10 or whatever number we agreed to. And you can still be creative in your cover letter or in other parts of the RFQ response and throw in there other school projects that you've worked on. So it's not like you can't bring them up. You can bring them up in other areas and just be creative in how you do it.
But it's just the big ones, it's like, the $50 million project, well, there's only been 2 of those in the last 12 years.
Right.
well, and that's no fault of anybody's, but
In theory, that sounds good, and we've gone through that. And I do everything we talk about, but there was several projects about a year ago where we're being honest, we showed past work, middle school, the Lexington Middle School,
bring the page, we did those projects, we showed them, because we saw other firms were showing projects in the experience required section outside of the 7-year window, so we showed them too, we didn't even get shortlisted, we were docked by the judges because the experience was shown as not being current. Even though other firms had gotten through that process, that creative process you're suggesting, and made it to the shortlisting round. So, we've tried everything, we've seen everything, how it all goes. And the other point that I wanna make on this is that in my suggestion, is, and we could have a fiscal year of 2005, 2006 or something like that, if you wanna do that, is that if you can demonstrate that you still have the same team, why not hire them? Why not?
Well, and part of that goes to, you know, the people judging this are not facilities people, they're not construction people anymore.
Right.
So,
Well,
doing that.
there's a component of many departments.
There is.
Construction still involved.
Absolutely. And, but when you go round robin between, 30 or so people or whatever it is, not a lot of them have that background or are gonna make in-between kind of choices. It's kind of all or nothing. And, that kind of goes to my pet peeve about coaching them up a little bit on what they're actually looking for and what the district has asked for. Because sometimes it seems if you give you what you ask for, that's not what they want to see. That's just, me thinking out loud, but.
I thought we were gonna have those two ladies come in and clarify for us the application.
We did a number of times, honestly, and it was kind of, one of our last go-arounds was, they made some recommendations, they didn't listen to some of our recommendations, so we were gonna formally request them to hear them again, It's kind of where we left that. They did take some, and then they didn't take others, and there was gonna be some that we didn't agree with, so we left it open to the people to put it in writing, so.
Your group made a recommendation that you would come up with potential fixes or changes to this, and as a committee, you would have a list of them that you would go to either a board workshop or a briefing to brief the board. And either the board would support what we were bringing forward and ask procurement to look into it, and we share it with procurement and see if those changes could be made. Because there may be legal ramifications that we're not aware about. You have to look at it from a legal statutory perspective. So that, I think, is what you guys were commissioned to do, is come up with what you feel might be reasonable changes to the current procurement system. For them to, we would bring it to the board, we get board support, they would validate whether it can or not be, and it's the will of the board that if it could be, then the board would request that they implement it in the next go-around. So I think we're seeing the questions now come from Bob and the rest of you guys. It's really about you guys talking through it, see which ones you feel comfortable bringing forward to the board presentation.
It doesn't feel like we have much of a consensus here, so how do we leave this?
I think you go through each question, and
I'm like Jack, I think 10 years.
You gotta start on some kind of even playing field, anybody did it, you can't just lopside it like you described.
All right, it appears as I have 4 10s and 1 unlimited.
so I would do
Scott kind of
I would say
maintaining his
10.
innocence.
I would do Robert's rules.
I think 10's reasonable.
And you got a motion, I would say there's a motion on the table by so-and-so for 10 years. Like the board does, do I hear a second? If you get a second, then put a vote.
All right, so I need a motion for the 10-year.
So I'll make a motion that we recommend past experience be extended from the 7 years to 10 years on future RFQ responses.
Do you get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, so Julie, you got the people who made the motion and who seconded it?
I was writing down, I didn't get the second on that. Thank you.
And it was a 6-1 tally on that. Next item is the past demonstration of committees regarding past projects again.
Hey, Ryan, I'm not stopping, but you got a gentleman.
You did say.
Oh, Darren, I'm sorry, you snuck in late.
You watched me walk in.
I even said,
But then you hit the back right behind me. Come up and join society, man.
I'm good, I see everybody from right here.
So, were you like, well, how did you vote on the last go around?
I said,
Was it 7-1?
7, yes.
7-1. Who voted against? Oh, okay, thank you.
On 1.2, talking again about past projects, for architectural roofing consultant services, tab E should allow project examples that have completed the design phase but have not been constructed. Part of the rationale is not uncommon that a project takes years to be constructed. It does not go any further than the design phase for several different reasons. And very much that's beyond our control. It's funding, owner-related, there could be a number of issues on why a project chooses not to go forward at that point. Is there any strong feeling one way or the other about whether or not the past project experience has to be fully completed or just a design completed?
Personally, I think it could be design, under construction,
Yeah,
or completed.
Shouldn't matter.
Yeah, I'm with you, like, honestly.
Here's how I look at it. We're going out for design on G. Weaver Hicks or a pre-K center. There is no federal funding, so there's no guarantee that that job will move forward. However, I am hiring an architectural firm to create documents, so when they complete those 100% documents, they in effect have completed their contract. So I would, if you were asking me my opinion, I would say yes, that should count as a design experience. Agreed.
Is there, I mean, that's just to me a common thing, it would be submitted anyways. I would submit if it was a design that I completed, as on a re-roof. Shouldn't count against you.
I don't know if it has or if it hasn't, but.
Yeah, I mean, if it's in construction or, been put on hold, it's still done with the design, still did the work.
Make a note that it's still, pending construction or something like that.
The problem you see on this one is depending upon who you talk to and who was working at the time the question was asked, who was working with the district as an employee, you get a different answer.
It's a little unclear the way it's written.
I've asked the question in RFQ meetings and I get different answers.
So here's the chance. Make a motion, vote on it, approve it, we're bringing it forward to the board for recommendation.
Are we doing a design complete or design in process under contract?
I wouldn't say in process or in contract. I would say if you
Design
completed the design complete, you fulfilled your contract, you then can claim it as a job that you have done for the school.
I would agree with that.
That would be my recommendation. Everybody can say that the board approved them.
So
as
I
a
make a
ranking.
motion, we follow Scott's recommendation of, I'm trying to remember exactly how you worded it. Is,
Complete
design, a complete design,
Should be referenced as, could be referenced as a project for prior experience.
So Julie, that's seconded by Jack McStravick.
Seconded by Mr. Taylor. All in favor?
Aye.
I
heard you. You heard me.
8-0.
All right. Our next item is qualification criteria, decline references. There's kind of a lot in this. I'm gonna cut to the chase and we're making the recommendation to maintain the references for a 2-year minimum instead of a 1 year. And we've run the process a lot of public entities just don't do references, period. They're like tough, they won't do it. Collier County doesn't, FGCU doesn't. And they're good because we're doing 7 or 8 a month sometimes.
Well, I can tell you
That there's more shutting down because of that, like enough of this.
I can tell you from my perspective, because I get it from pretty much all of you, it's a pain in the ass.
It is.
And I can't play favorites, I can't do that, but I get them constantly. And it's always last minute, can you do this for us? And so.
Sorry, Scott.
That's all right. I didn't name anybody there.
Well, like other counties are like, have had your frustrations and they're like, we're just not doing any for anybody. And walk away, And it makes them harder and harder to get because you're constantly doing it.
So that,
I would suggest to you guys, I think it makes sense, 2 years. There's other components to that same question.
There is.
I think you guys, why don't you make that motion just for that one section to approve that portion?
so as somebody that's graded our books in the past, how much does that reference actually make to us moving forward?
See, that's where it's ambiguous. It depends on the size of the job in the RFQ. What if the job is only a $10 million RFQ at FMTC, let's say, right? And then a year and a half down the road, it's a $50 million. Should that reference still apply for a job that they may have been referring as a $10 million job, is now maybe a $54 million middle school?
Well, as another firm that works with other school districts, we don't provide, so what is the school district's requirement? Why does the school district wants the reference? Do they want the reference, or is this just something that's been carried over in RFQ processes for over the years?
Honestly, I think that may be part of the statutory process for contracting requiring references. I can't say for certain, but that would be a question for Rick here.
So then we could actually make a motion to remove the requirement for references, and then the board could shoot it down if it doesn't meet statutory requirements.
Well, part of the problem is references are good and bad, you know. In private practice, nobody asks me for a reference. Yeah, I'm either, my experience with my projects, speak for himself when I work with them, or it's not a good fit.
If they want a reference, they'll call somebody.
They'll call somebody, I'll give them 15 references if they want, but I'm for it. But at the same token, and the school district works, we're here with the school district, we live here, we work here, and it's all the same people, same contractors, the same architects, same engineers, same civil engineers. So we all have a vested interest in doing good work, okay? So references shouldn't be the deciding factor, and none of us getting work.
Well, here's the argument that could be made. And whether you're a smart person or a not so smart person, if you're gonna require to have references, you're gonna feel out the people that are gonna give you 4 stars.
Well, that too, yeah.
You're not gonna send it to somebody that potentially is gonna give you 2 stars.
Of course you're gonna look for the best.
To me, I hear what you're saying, the references, in my opinion, are just about as useless as toilet paper, so.
Okay.
If that's
Well,
what you guys.
if you have the people who have done work that are in this room that can stand for their work, but you're gonna have people that are outside that district that need those references, because you don't know who they are, they're all over the place, they've been in pre-meetings in the last month, that you don't know where they're from, they're out of state, local, Orlando, Miami, whatever, so you will need those references, because you've never seen them, you've seen our references.
Yeah, but again,
Those are past experience would be part of your, you've got all this past experience, and that's part of your reference.
Well, but you also need, because we've gotten into trouble in the past, we've hired architects, engineers, contractors, and they've had brilliant references, and the projects, did
Well,
not.
and that's my point, even if you're from, say, Miami, wanting to do work up here.
Right.
You're gonna seek out the best references to get all 4. You're not gonna submit one that has a 1 and 2.
So.
From that project.
References.
So again, it's all.
So references can be manipulated. I don't know.
So I make a motion to remove the requirement of references from the RFQ process.
If legal.
If legal.
If legal.
I'll second it by Dana.
Yeah.
And the second part, so you got that, Julia?
We're gonna, all in favor for physically removing the references from the RFQ process? Allowed?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Any opposed?
Yeah, I am, sorry. The agreement they made with us at one meeting was that you would fill the references out on an initial contract, and they would hold that for 2 years. So you don't have to fill that all the time. In other words, you already got your foot in the door, because they're requesting it, they're requiring it. Once that was done, they would hold, instead of holding it for 6 months, you had, the next time you do a contract bid, you gotta fill them all out again. They said it was redundant, so they agreed to a 2-year max on it, because
That was
after
1
2
year
years.
at a time.
I'm sorry?
It was 1 year, and the original question was to push it out to 2 years.
Yeah, well, they agreed to that when they were here at that meeting we had. They said, well, they could go to 2 years on it. It stopped a lot of the paperwork process.
That hasn't been enacted yet.
They were talking about it.
Correct.
So, but to take it away, I think it's a mistake.
Well, see, and then part of the second half of that same response was that the firms felt that they shouldn't be held accountable for the people providing the references not filling out the reference correctly. I.e., building official. He doesn't build square feet, so if he doesn't put a dollar value in there for the square feet, he puts his contract value.
Sure.
And then it goes to a panel, people score it, people get dinged, they get complaints, well, at the end of the day, that reference is your responsibility. It's not our responsibility to make sure the people you reach out for reference don't fill it out correctly. In my opinion, the firms should be pre-reviewing that reference sheet before they submit it to Tracy and the crew to be utilized as your references. So,
It has to come directly from them.
Yeah, but it says directly sent from the reference.
so here's what I would suggest.
You don't have control of that process.
You tell the people to send you a draft so that you can prove it, and then have them send it directly to the district.
You can do all that, but that goes back to Ryan's initial statement, after a while, people say enough.
Yeah,
There you
you're making a
go.
pain in the ass
So,
of royal.
From what I'm hearing is it's so convoluted that the path you're taking right now, saying abandon ship with it, might be the right solution. If we already know that you're searching out the people that are gonna give you all 5 gold stars, then you already know they may or may not carry any real weight. So what good do they do?
As a side note, I've actually talked to people that have also scored these, and they see references as like a pass-fail. Did you have 3 or did you have 5? That's all that matters. You could have 0 stars on all 3. It's just as good as 5 stars on all 3.
That's correct.
It's a pass-fail. So you could be the worst reference in the world, but you still get full credit for it. You get more credit for 5 0 stars than you do for 3 5 stars.
I agree. You could have a score where all your references give you 1 point each on each reference, but because you had all 3, and someone only had 2 with all 4 stars on it, they get dinged, and you get full points.
And maybe it becomes the reference process goes to purchasing looks at the letters and say, 1, 2, and 3, you got them all, they all look good, there's no negatives, and then you get a good score. And then that, because if you leave it to the evaluators, they're gonna give you your, 0.5 instead of 3.5.
But right now, unless somebody changes the motion's on the board, and we gotta wait for board approval.
Right, Bob? So our recommendation would be essentially to dump it first, and I understand Mr. English's concern there. I just think that there's a lot of ways that can be achieved without having to actually do this sort of reference format.
And I'm looking, I think the reference process should still stay in there, just it should be evaluated differently. Maybe every 2 years, every 2 years, I think the reference process needs to still be there.
Okay, so the motion was on the table.
Motion was on the table, voted for, and
To dump it all together.
And did it pass or fail?
7-1.
And which just kind of turned to 6-2 after the fact.
Are you calling for, you call for a vote?
You kind of have to look at it, I think it kind of starts off with like, we recommend getting rid of it, but at the very least, hold on to it for 2 years. Could we have like an A and a B reference, for that? Like, there's a good number of people, that just think it's too easily manipulated to actually be useful. And a fallback position would be to make us do it less often.
Art, what was
And make it as a true pass-fail,
But I think
not a scored rating.
I think the reference process needs to be still in the process of evaluation, but it should not be left up to the evaluators to grade the references. It should just say, you got your 3 references, they look good, within 3 to 5, if something's bad, then that's a red flag, that would, so maybe the purchasing department would do that just like they do the,
Okay, so
Financials.
So if I'm hearing you right, what you may want to do is make a counter motion to the previous, saying that you still would like the references to be maintained by the district per the current policy. However, you would like the review of those references to be done similar to the financial statements, which is by back of house, rather than the committee.
right, and then up to 2 years. 2 years would be because of the 1 year.
So make that motion, Art.
2-year life.
Make that motion to supersede the previous vote.
All right, well, I propose to make a motion that the reference process and the RFQ submittals for all professionals and contractors to be updated to a 2-year process and be moved to be evaluated by the purchasing department rather than the reviewers of the selection committee, correct.
Good with that. Seconded by Mr. English? All right, for all in favor?
Aye.
What was the final count on the previous vote? Was it 7-1? It was.
7-1, and then
Okay.
we kind of modified it, counted it, and did it again, and the only one I didn't hear from is Jeff.
In all those, so it's 6-1.
Okay.
Okay, so that one's one that'll go to the board for briefing, to make it happen.
Our next item, yeah, that was the, why we deem judge someone's ability to delete the sheet, and I just didn't really get that. And didn't wanna- That was all kind of merged into that last discussion. And then we move on to the scoring. Nope, it's still in the books. For the workload and district projects, some workload of firms may fluctuate during the life of a project, especially with a 3-year continuing contract solicitation, which makes the middle workload not relevant. There's no way to provide accuracy of workload documents, but if required, we would recommend the district develop a standard that all respondents would fill out so that all submittals can be accurately compared and evaluated against each other. So this is more, I mean, under the current workload, it makes a lot of sense for projects that go out as individual projects. For continuing services projects, does current workload really have a lot of bearing when the project may not come into plate for 2 or 3 years down the road?
Well, I don't know that that's what the statement is. I think what the concern is we do a lot of continuing contract work, kitchen renovations, God knows canopies, transportation things with bus loops and so forth. So to me, we want to see, or the committee wants to see, that you're not overloaded. And if you've only got a 2, 3, 4-man company, that you don't have a whole school, 4 or 5 mash-up summer jobs and continuing contract, and that you're gonna be able to manage it. So if you're under contract, and the superintendent has signed your contract, you should be listing in your book all of the jobs that you are currently engaged on. What that means is, if it hasn't got to final audit and final pay, you're engaged in that job. And you should list all those jobs. And you should show an employee count as to how many people, who is on what jobs, and how you're managing this entire portfolio. Again, some firms only have 2 or 3 people. Well, you can't have a major school job, a $50 million school job, and 2 or 3 kitchen jobs. You know, we see that with the GCs too. The same names are being put there as the staff that's gonna be on site. And I'm like, well, last time I checked, you can't cut somebody in thirds. So.
And that's part of my frustration with the wandering, selection committee. Like, I could walk into 4 different submittals and say, I'm the guy in all 4, and no one else in the room would know. That's just kind of one of those things you have to work through, I guess. But this is, I thought this was specifically for continuing services, the small jobs.
It applies even to the larger RFQ.
It does.
We want to see what jobs and what your workload is. And honestly, every job, as far as I'm concerned, we want to see that participant's workload. So if he's only listed on that job 25%, okay, where's the other 75% of this employee? Is he working for Hertz? Is he working for FTCU? We need to see that you can man and provide labor for
So manpower and equipment, both, not just the men.
So my
The
question
current
is,
system failed you miserably not too long ago. Just want to point that out.
when you say it failed you miserably, are you talking about when it was originally when you was doing an RFQ, you only showed your big jobs, you didn't count? Because because it was only in the last few RFQs that your continuing contracts came back into play.
And that was only because of, ADG had stated that because there was a whole drop in the market from 08 till now, really some of the local guys, the local firms really only had continuing contract work to report. So they made that change to try and help some of the local firms, when you get somebody like Suffolk who works in 20 different states, of course you're gonna be able to show high school every 6 months. Whereas you guys, we may not, every 4 years maybe, So it was a chance to try and give you something to put in there to qualify for the RFQ and not just shut you out.
I don't see an issue with the workload chart.
I don't either.
I can tell you it can be manipulated just like the other one we talked about. So that's fine, if you want to keep it in there, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, the way I read it, I thought it was specifically for continuing services, when, my workload 3 years from now, God knows what that's gonna be. But, but by and large, 90% of the time, it is extremely important. And that actually even, if anything, push it to the point of, why does work have to be under contract? It's committed. If you won projects and you have time committed, you can't walk into the next one and deny any of it.
You bring a good point. Our contracts, we can bail on a contract at will, for pretty much any reason.
So does the county.
Okay, so,
Again, that goes back to our reputation doing work in the district and working with you guys. Another company that's not here or that's not local, we just walk away. At this point, we have to stand for what we do.
if people are honest, it gives us an indication that you can do the job. If people cheat on that statistically and change statistics, sure they can. But we're trying to see, are you overloaded? Can you do the work?
Yeah, honestly, personally, at the end of the day, I don't see anything wrong with the way it is right now. If anything, there may be some information that, doesn't need to be.
So I make a motion that we leave S 4.1 alone.
A second.
Seconded by Mr.
Where
Stravic.
Julia go?
All in favor?
Aye.
So leave it alone. Leave it alone.
I'll let you know
if I say no, Ryan, you don't have to keep flipping back.
Unless you got another rip.
Our next item was 4.2, is in order to avoid any type of misrepresentation or error, we strongly recommend that design fee history be presented in a uniform format so that all considered submittals inaccurate data is not presented. This is just basically asking you guys to standardize the format of the design fee history. And judging by, your 330 and the PQS, I don't want you guys to make any more forms. That's my personal opinion. There isn't one that works right. It's all like there.
Is that S 4.2?
Yeah.
I make a motion to leave S 4.2 alone.
Again, anyone can manipulate anything. It's much like the last one.
Or no changes.
No changes to it. I'll second that.
You could possibly, clear up the language to say, provide these specific items, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of the forms.
So that was number
4.2.
4.2, there was a motion
Okay.
to leave it alone.
So leave it alone.
And the motion was made by Jack Mastravic, second by Danny Yu. And you guys gonna vote on that?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
7-0.
Oh, sorry.
And on 4.1, the motion was made by, if I back up a little bit, just because we lost Julia. Who made the motions on 4.1? Dana made it and Jack seconded it.
And it was 7-0.
And 7-0 as well.
And that was to leave that
Dana made it, and who seconded it?
Jack Stravic.
McStravic.
7-0 vote, and it was to leave 4.1 alone, correct?
Correct.
And 4.2 is also 7-0?
Correct.
Okay.
5.1 is recommend to revise A from a business located in Lee County to any company, corporation, or business provide proof that they resided in Lee County for at least 1 year prior to the advertisement of the day's RFQ. This is to present out-of-town companies opening up a storefront office a day prior to the RFQ coming out to gain local points.
Isn't it now 3 years? You have to have a local office for 3 years?
It's 1 year.
It's 1 year.
I don't understand, well, if you have to be here for a year, how are you gonna do it the day before?
Well, I think what it is they're not required to have a local office. You're required to have a local tax certificate and so on and so forth.
Right.
Correct? Harvard Jolly, those people who gave a presentation, their main office, now they do have a local office.
They have local office.
Correct. But then the question was, I think in previous, they didn't make that a requirement. You just had to have a local tax certificate.
Yeah, I think there is a local requirement in the books, or is that in the?
Well, you get more points if you're a local requirement.
In the books.
In the books.
So then
That goes away.
So then the argument now,
In my realm, all of us are considered out of town, even though
so I think what they're trying, what Bob was trying to accomplish was
Because our corporate was out of Delray.
make it have a local tax certificate and address in Lee County for at least 1 year prior to participating in an RFQ. So what that prevents is somebody who sees it comes here, rents a storefront so they can qualify for the RFQ the day before the RFQ and compete. Are you saying,
Yeah, I think, right now, I think it's 100 miles, is it?
At least I thought it was 200.
200?
200 miles, so that's,
is there a local? I'm not sure if there's a local or not, but I thought there was just a.
There is no requirement.
I thought there was a Florida statute saying you couldn't do that.
We can't, and that's why they
If
did
it's
it.
federally funded.
Well, no, you just,
No, you can't do that.
in statute, you can't. They made it 200 was the general guideline, and it doesn't require you to have a local office. We prefer it, you want to keep things local, but I don't know that it's required that you have a local office. If we do require you to have a license, a tax certificate and a business license for Lee County, to work in Lee County.
The way it reads right now, it says, any person, firm, partnership, company, or corporation that has provided goods or services to the school district of Lee County on a regular basis for the consecutive 3 years, and that has the personnel, equipment, and materials located within the boundaries of Lee County sufficient to constitute a present ability to perform the services or provide the goods. I mean, I think that,
So we don't want.
that accomplishes everything he's trying to accomplish and then some.
so that's fine.
You know?
So we don't want people from out of state to come in and build our schools if they could build them a lot cheaper and save much save the taxpayers money? Is that what we're trying to limit here?
Oh, no,
It's trying to give local people a boost.
Well,
Trying to
when
keep
we're
their
doing this,
money
you
in
have no idea if it's gonna be cheaper or not. That's part of the conversation, you're not gonna know if they're actually cheaper for the next 8 months.
What we've had is in the past, and it was Walbridge, and it was East Lee County High School. They were the first out of town, they came from Chicago or whatever, out of town company to come in, because at that point, people were upset in the community that we weren't getting great competitive bids from large national firms. We were keeping it into our own little nest. So that was the first one that they came in and they won that high school. They didn't finish that high school. They actually walked away at the end, at the very end, and never have been back. So, of course, then we had to focus, let's go back to local. We saw how this played out. So, you just read the current approved.
Yeah.
I think it gives you everything you want. It's people that have goods, material, labor, that are within 200 miles that have been doing business with us, providing those services for 3 years. So is that offensive to anybody here?
I don't have a problem with that.
It seems like,
No, I don't care that it's, we can keep it local, but, if you have a company from Tampa come down,
well, I think Tampa falls in that
it's
200 mile
it's still
radius.
200 miles. Well, we're saying it's Lee County.
Well, having tax certificates of business licenses in Lee County and providing services. So even if you're from Tampa and you're providing services for 3 years to qualify.
Yeah, I mean, if a Tampa company gets on their continuing services contract, comes down and.
I think what Bob's trying to add is one more caveat that says, for at least 1 year, you better have a storefront with people in it prior to that RFQ, if I'm reading what they're looking for.
I don't see why.
To get extra points
I don't see why.
for quote local.
I mean, if anything, when I
You're
look
within
at
the
it.
200 miles, you're within the 200 miles.
Right. When I look at it, I'm like, where do we start to dock people that go out of town because they can't handle all the work they have, and then bring in someone else's experience, claim it, present it, and then now the work's being done in Tampa, even though the firm is, there.
Before you have Tampa companies that are doing really, really good in Tampa, and then they don't, all their work has been in Tampa, but then Tampa starts to slow down on their building, and then now they're fully capable of doing the work, they're just now moving down here and do the work.
Yeah.
So they don't technically have a tax license in the county or a storefront, because they just got done 6 months ago finishing a $100 million high school in Tampa.
I think there's a point system already in place for that process. That's fine with me, I don't have an issue with that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at more the construction side, because I'm more of a construction guy, I'm not an architect or these engineers. I'm looking at the construction, the construction management side.
But even if you Florida somewhere, in order for you to do the work, you gotta get a local license.
No, we don't.
You don't?
No.
We don't. We do all governmental work, everything's low bid, doesn't matter where you're from, at all. We get Manhattan comes down here from up north, taking bridges from us, I mean, we're low bid, we're a low bid company construction company anyway, so
We get low bid no matter what. I mean, that is a
there is
difficult-
no preference for, if we have a company from Miami competing over here in Lee County, I mean, they have to pay their guys more to travel back and forth, so they're of course gonna be higher, but they might be cheaper, they'll get the job. We don't, so yeah, everything we do, we don't have low.
And see, that was a decision on the board, because they did want to be a better partner for the taxpayers of Lee County, and try to keep the money in Lee County if possible, to the greatest extent. So I think what you've got somewhat accomplishes that. I think it also allows for a company, even if they're large or national, if they want to get involved, come get your tax certificate, sign up. I think what Bob was trying to get to is that they have a functioning office for a year in the Lee County borders to participate. And I don't know that we can do that from a statutory standpoint, so my recommendation to you guys is make the motion to either adjust it or keep it as is and do a vote and move to the next item.
I'll make a motion that we leave it alone.
I'll second it.
Is that eliminating the in Lee County tax certificate for a year?
No, they still have to get that.
It doesn't, it's not worded that way.
They usually make you have a business license, so what it's saying, I think where the way it is right now,
Active business.
you have to have an active business license, but you don't necessarily have to have a storefront within the compound of Lee County proper.
Yeah, this doesn't say anything about business licenses in here. It just says you're doing work here for 3 years. It doesn't have to, I mean, you could be located anywhere, but if you're doing work here for 3 years. I'm just saying the way it's currently worded, you know. I'm not sure that's a deal breaker or not, I just don't see that wording in here.
And what item number is that, please?
5.1?
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, so we've got two motions to not change it. How's that going in a second? Can I get a vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Sounds like a whole lot of don't changes. I guess we're 7-0, is it?
How much more we got there?
Oh, my lord. You know, this is the first one to sneak out, right?
You're not there.
Yeah, I mean, we've gone through the books, now we're on to the evaluation of presentations. You know, the first one, the respondent proposed team included key personnel, project personnel, participated in the presentation, and communicated their knowledge, skills, abilities relevant to the project implementation of projects. He's asking this part about the project team to be not applicable on continuing services project. Because each project requires a different team under continuing services contracts. I do understand that to a regard, but I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, because there's the design team as well. They're kind of molded together. Well, understandably, we may not be able to pick our engineers for a project we don't know about yet, because you have to know the project to see who's appropriate. The design team still is, you know, a project team in itself that needs to be evaluated. So, you know, I don't agree with, you know, the throw it out for continuing services. I am open to amending it to say, hey, look, you don't need all the other sub-consultants down the food chain because you don't even know what the project is yet.
Right. I think you guys, typically as architects, if it requires design from a lead as an architect position, or vice versa, if it was a mechanical position, you should provide the companies that, no matter what kind of job you would get, you would use as a resource to make up your project design team.
Right.
So, in this instance, if it was you as doing a central energy plant, which has the bulk of the building design, right? You would have the lead, and if you have some civil work to have you done, you might list Johnson Engineering as a potential civil. So again, you don't know what the job is, and if you need cafeteria expertise, maybe you hire X company X over here. You put a list of potential sub-consultant vendors that would make up your team that you would pull from.
And that's what we've always done. I've never seen any issue with that. Like, we'll use one of these two guys. Until we find the
I'll give you an
project,
example.
we don't know which one.
I've got a roofing issue, no names mentioned. I may want to see a CM that would put this, not necessarily show me a roofing company that maybe we didn't want to engage with. That could have an effect.
So make a motion to keep that one the same.
I'm sorry, can I hear that motion again, please?
To P 1.1, to not change it.
P 5.1?
1.1.
1.1?
Yeah, this is the presentation evaluation.
Okay, gotcha. And who motioned? That was Art.
Second,
Okay.
anybody? Mr. Wolf?
All in favor? Any opposed? All right, 7-0 as well, and people want 1.1 to not change it.
This one, next item is 2.3, and that's the project timeline, and it's kind of the same comment, not applicable to a continuing services project.
I would agree with that.
And I would agree with that one as well. We can't put together a schedule if you know what the project is.
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem to, I mean, it's perfectly fine for 90% of the RFQs, continuing services. It's a waste of time. Is anyone opposed to taking up the schedules when you don't have a project?
Well, what I would have, you're talking about continuing contract?
Continuing service contracts.
Oh, we're talking about continuing, so you gotta be.
I mean, this is technically for both, but, you know, it's just specifically for continuing services, just NA, that line item.
If it's for a project that has an RFQ, which we.
Yeah, well, clearly, yes.
You can do a timeline, but for continuing projects,
You can't,
really don't know.
You can't, there's no way.
Schedule.
But I wouldn't wipe it out for scheduling, because even on a smaller project, we want a schedule. So what I would submit to you is, instead of providing a schedule, provide the scheduling software that you would use to create those schedules once the contract.
A sample schedule.
Or, this is all they're really looking for. They know
They know, the project, they know it's not a timeline, it's just
what goes after this, after this, after this.
that's what they really want to know, that's all.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it's a 4-month, 8-month, 12-month project. So then we need to change the verbiage in it, because the verbiage says the timeline is
Realistic.
For the projects, exactly.
unexpected delays and is compatible with the district's desired timeline. So for continuing services, I would recommend that we strike that line from the verbiage of the evaluation for the presentation. I think the rest of it's okay, because like you said, you can
Do what an outline would look like, if we were doing a project, but.
Right,
do something.
exactly, like strike line 2 altogether, and then on line 1, and just change proposed to sample. And I think we're pretty clear, we can differentiate the two.
Yeah, for continuing
For
services.
continuing services only.
Right, so what you're doing is you're showing an example of the scheduling you could create should you have a job.
To create it for.
Exactly.
There you go, so go ahead and make the motion.
Does that make sense? And that'll take actually a little bit of verbiage, I can kind of cut and paste that and then send the recommendation. It's just, the second line, just cut it out completely, and then we'll change proposed to sample for continuing services only.
Right.
All right,
Applies only in continuing services.
yes.
Now realize this will take effect in 3 years from now.
Yeah, exactly. We'll forget all about this by then.
then.
All right, can I get a motion to approve that recommendation?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Motion to approve it.
Second.
One is Mr. Hume, 2, Mr. Mistravic, and then all in favor?
And that was 2.3? P,
Yes.
P 2.3.
And then it's not in Bob's thing, and it was just something that's always bugged me in the back of the head. One of my recommendations is selection criteria. 3 is cost controls, 4 is creativity and innovation, and 5 is knowledge of project site and local participation. To me, that is completely backwards. I just want to swap 3 and 5. Just because it tells a story, it works. You're asking about the nitty gritty before you get the overall, hey, we know what the project is. It's just, it's hard to wrap your head around and talk about. I don't know if there's any strong feelings one way or the other, it's just miserable to present backwards, I know we don't have to follow this in order, but it's a logical temptation, but.
Do you get dinged in a presentation if you don't follow the order?
Here's what I would suggest, I don't think you need to vote on that. Tracy has open ears.
Yeah.
And it makes sense and it doesn't affect the scoring. You just think it makes more rational sense from a reading and understanding perspective to go in that lineage. So I would just recommend that to Tracy.
Okay.
On
the down low, like 4 is fine, just swap 3 and 5.
Yes, you're not changing it, you're just changing the order in the presentation to make it a better presentation. I think Tracy would agree with you. So I just pick up the phone, give her a call, and I'm sure that they could make that happen.
Fair enough.
don't know what number that is, 5.1?
Well, that was D4 and 5. And then the last item we have, thank you for your patience, everybody, is 5.1. Knowledge of the project site and local conditions that will impact the implementation of the RFQ project. Again, this is another not applicable to continuing services projects. Yes and no, I can see it. I mean, I've also tried to make the most of it when we do continuing services.
Yeah.
I mean, knowing Lee County, knowing the wind speed, the flood zones, stuff like that is relevant project information, even though you don't have a project. You can say, and like Art said, we're all here, we're all doing this consistently, we all know the same info, it's the same town, but.
I make a motion, we don't change that.
Second that.
And that's 5.1?
Yes, 5.1. Any recommendations, vote to leave it alone? Sorry. Any opposed? We will not be touching 5.1.
And who seconded on that?
Dana?
Dana, okay.
And, that's all we have.
Thank you, Chief. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right, I'm not gonna bore you guys, everybody wants to go sick with the man.
You got an update. You got an update, or you gonna do it next time?
I do, or I can have Julia email to all of you so you can watch it as you leave.
It's email.
Email. Okay? So Julia?
I make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, you're welcome.
Sorry,
Are you taking the vaccine yet?
Agenda before
I got the Johnson & Johnson.
Oh, there you go, one shot.
Yeah.
Any ramifications or was fine?
I was weak for about 2 days.
Yeah, then you get a soreness in your arm. It goes
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I got weak in one of my knees got pain and I don't know what that was about.
Could have been traveling like a tetanus shot.
Oh, that's true.
Sorry.
Oh, boy.
I guess I'll see you guys in the fall.
You will remind us, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because I'm sure I'll get the communication from, the board office and I'll be sending
Okay.
stuff out to everybody.
Awesome. Well, have a good summer.
You too, Scott.
Try to take that.
Yeah.
Sure you want that, right?
Yeah.